Having big muscles is not as much of an advantage in a fight as you might think. Sure, you might look tough, but all that extra weight makes you tire faster. And for this video, we're showing what happens when bodybuilders get humbled by real fighters. Based on the eye test alone, you might be fooled into thinking that this absolutely jacked dude is the tough guy here. But when compared to a legit mixed martial artist, watch how fast it all falls apart. This dude should have spent way more time on the mats and sparring instead of trying to bulk himself up. In other words, the real fighter here had an easy time beating the brakes off of him. Guys like him are not built for a true fight, and when they start to gas out, they become a big old chunk of dead weight. You can't fake BJJ. And even though this guy charged into close quarters with some real intensity, he ended up getting manhandled by the real tough guy in the room. Okay. If you had a close-up of his face as the exchange wore on, you could probably see the realization drawing on him. Basically, the jiu-jitsu could have folded him up in any way he wanted. That's what you call a real difference in skill level.
Oh, Jordan, he's asleep. He's asleep. Roll him over.
Watching this big dude get dominated like this is like seeing a boa constrictor feeding on its prey. You just don't know what it's like to get wrapped up by a skilled grappler until you're right there in their clutches. You're only surviving as long as he lets you survive. And that's the type of ego damage that some dudes can't deal with. It's like you're being told that all those hours in the gym were for nothing. This oversized and overconfident fighter looked like he was having bouts of roid rage every time he got close to the former UFC rostered Norman Park. But even though he looked tough and acted like a total psycho, he simply wasn't on Stormin' Norman's level. And judging off this clip, he probably never will be. You can mean mug all you like, but when the punches start flying, that's when the real fighters show you exactly who they are.
Tak, blokuje go prawą rękę, żeby nie miał się jak bronić. Sędzia krzyczy: broń się, Piotrek, i za chwilę będzie przerwa. Czy jest koniec? Koniec tego pojedynku!
Don't be fooled by his appearance. The 350-pound Bob Sapp tends to get absolutely wrecked in most fights he's in. Sure, when he's actually trying, he can be pretty fearsome. But the dude has been known to totally fall apart as soon as his opponent lands on his chin for the first time. And when you have a striker like Mirko Cro Cop standing in front of you, that ain't good. Cro Cop is one of the most legendary knockout artists in heavyweight history, and so, as soon as Sapp felt the power for the first time, he clearly didn't want to go back for seconds. This next one definitely falls into the category of fights you gotta see with your own eyes to fully believe. In one corner, you have a 6'8" giant, who clearly doesn't have too much actual fight knowledge or training to fall back on. In the other, you have a 5'3" martial artist, a guy who is probably a bantamweight at most. But here's the thing, fighting skill is pretty damn important, and in this case, you could see just how much it can make up for a gap in skill. The big guy is always going to have his moments, but in the end, technique reigns supreme. And when the submission presented itself, the small fighter was able to take home the win. You'd think that a key routine to victory for a muscle-bound gym junkie would be to get in close and get his hands on his opponent. But if you're relying on sheer physicality alone when you're in there with a BJJ black belt, that's not going to end well for you. Sure, you could cause a few problems early, but once you fall into the grappler trap, you're going to find yourself wrapped up real fast. And that's exactly what happened here. This guy needs to put down the dumbbells and sign up for a gym.
Who's the man? Who's the man? No burpee? No burpee? No burpee?
This next one is a little lighter in tone, and to be honest, a guy like Sage Northcutt isn't too far off a bodybuilder himself. But you can see how his training allows him to deal with the strength of the man standing opposite him. Sage is known more for his striking than anything else, but even with his years of wrestling and grappling training, you could tell that if this was a real fight, he would be absolutely dominating. Having fun yet? Be sure to let us know in the comments below before hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss a single upload. How about getting a true UFC elite and putting him up against someone who is simply too strong for their own good? Well, that's exactly what happened when Dustin Poirier showed off his considerable fighting talents in a technical display of grappling against strongman Brian Shaw. The difference in physical mass here is pretty insane, but you gotta hand it to DP. He deals with Shaw like it's a walk in the park. Real training makes a difference, folks. If this fight was genuine, there's a very good chance that Poirier would get the job done a lot faster.
I mean, you could just crank. I can feel you could crank on that so hard.
Oh, I hyperextend your elbow.
Literally,
Yeah.
you could break my arm.
Yeah.
You can't fake boxing skills, and this small but jacked bodybuilder seemed full of confidence right up until the point where the actual fighting began. And then, predictably, he started to fall apart when he realized that, well, his boxing skills were pretty much useless. He probably thought that he was the toughest guy in the world, but when push came to shove, it was proven to be empty confidence and nothing more. The other guy wasn't even that good, but his basic training was enough to help him mop the floor with his opponent. Owen Roddy is the longtime striking coach to the former two-weight UFC champion Conor McGregor, a former mixed martial artist, and a BJJ black belt. And in this fun seminar he ran, he showcases exactly why a training grappler basically has nothing to fear from a muscled-up bodybuilder. BJJ was created by the Gracies to allow them to deal with bigger opponents, and all these years later, decades after Royce Gracie took home victory in the very first UFC event, it remains as true as ever. You can't put a price on legit training. Bob Sapp is so bad at fighting that even when he doesn't lose legitimately, he still comes out looking bad. If you saw him walking down the street, you would immediately think he was a tough guy. But the truth is, his body tends to give out under even the slightest bit of pressure. And in this clash with James Thompson, that's exactly what happened. He was probably going to lose anyway, but we're getting way too used to seeing this absolutely massive man rolling around in pain.
Thompson trying to get to his feet.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a fight.
Hey, stop!
Oh, Sapp is tapping.
He hurt his leg. It looks like he hurt his leg.
Sure, this guy has the tattoos, he has the muscles, but when it comes to legitimate boxing fundamentals, he's pretty clearly behind this fighter. Watch how clumsy his technique is, and how he's failing to make any real reads, or deal with any of the traps that are being set for him. If this was more of a high-octane session, you could easily see how his opponent would walk him directly onto a huge kill shot. He's not the worst fighter you've ever seen, but you can imagine how this would probably serve as a great reality check for him and his clear limitations as a fighter. But have you ever sparred or rolled with someone who was way bigger than you? Or have you ever been beaten up by someone who was far smaller than you? Do let us know in the comments section below before leaving a like and a comment, plus subscribing so you don't miss any of our deep dive videos.